G'day, Steve here and welcome to Fortress Learning. In this video, I'm going to explain what a unit of competency is and its importance in the big scheme of things in the vet sector. Units of competency are an endorsed component of training packages that can be accessed via the National Vet Register at training.gov.au. A unit of competency is a document used by trainers and assessors to identify the skills and knowledge requirements that a person must have to be considered competent in a particular topic or subject area. For example, provide services to customers, or prepare and present sandwiches, or clean and tidy bar areas. These are all examples of individual units of competency. The collection of skills and knowledge that are identified in each unit of competency have been selected through direct consultation with industry to ensure that people who are studying these units gain skills and knowledge that are in line with current industry trends and expectations. Units of competency each cover individual topics or subject areas, and although they can be delivered and assessed individually, they're more commonly grouped with other units of competency to form what we know as skill sets and qualifications. The selection of individual units of competency that make up qualifications and skill sets are designed to address the full skill and knowledge requirements needed for different job roles or specific job tasks. Let's take a closer look at how units of competency are constructed. Now, each unit of competency has its own unique code and title. So let's decode the code. The first three letters of the code identify the training package that the unit originally comes from, and in this example, BSB identifies the Business Services Training Package. The next three letters identify the strand or subject area of the unit, and in this case, CMM represents communication. The first number identifies the AQF level of the unit, and the final two numbers identify the order or location you'll find it listed with other units from the same subject area. Now, the title is simply a succinct statement about what the unit's content relates to. There are actually two documents that need to be considered when interpreting a unit of competency. The first document is the actual unit of competency itself, which outlines the content that needs to be learned. The second document is called the Assessment Requirements, which provides guidance and rules about how the learner should be assessed to ensure that they've gained the intended skills and knowledge. Units of competency contain four main sections. The first is the application section that gives a general overview of the intended outcomes of the unit, as well as the potential job roles where these outcomes may be suited. The next main section of the unit is the elements and performance criteria. Now, the elements are the big picture essential outcomes required for the unit of competency, and the performance criteria identify what is required to achieve each element. For example, in this element from the unit of competency prepare sandwiches, it states that the learner must be able to select ingredients. The performance criteria further break this down by explaining what exactly is needed to achieve that element. 1.1, confirm sandwich requirements. 1.2, identify and select bread types and fillings. And 1.3, check perishable supplies for spoilage or contamination. Now, these performance criteria are the skills that have been identified as essential for the workplace through consultation with industry. And these criteria form the basis of the skills that need to be demonstrated by the learner to be deemed competent. The final section in the unit of competency document is the foundation skills. Now, these are the underpinning skills that are needed for a learner to appropriately demonstrate the elements and performance criteria that have been outlined in the unit of competency. So this section identifies core skill requirements like digital literacy, reading, writing, oral communication and numeracy, as well as other generic employability skills like problem solving, planning and organising, and teamwork, among others. The second document is the assessment requirements. Now, this has three main sections that guide the critical aspects of assessment needed for the unit. Now, the first section is the performance evidence. This identifies the specific skills that learners must be able to demonstrate to achieve competence. This is also where you'll find required quantities and timeframes for demonstrating skills. For example, if a performance criteria stated that the learner must prepare and present breakfast to customers based on a standard menu, the performance evidence may quantify this by stating something like, this needs to include preparing and presenting at least 3 different breakfast menu items. The performance evidence will help to determine what needs to be covered in the training and what assessment evidence must be collected. The next section is the knowledge evidence. This section identifies the specific knowledge that a learner must have before they can be deemed competent for the unit. This also helps us to determine what needs to be covered in the training, as well as what questions would need to be asked when assessing the learners. The final section is the assessment conditions. Now, this section outlines the mandatory rules that must be followed when conducting assessment. Now, this will include things like specific equipment that the learners must have access to, and whether the assessment must be done in a real workplace or can it happen in a simulated environment that would be typical of a real workplace. Okay, so what we've looked at in this video is an overview of what a unit of competency is, where we can find them, and how they fit into the big picture. Now, the important thing to remember is that we must use both the Unit of Competency document in conjunction with the assessment requirements to ensure that the skills that are delivered and assessed meet the requirements of the unit as determined through that industry consultation. Thanks for watching, and if a career as a trainer in vocational education is something you're interested in, contact Fortress Learning to see just how you can get started.